Hello friends, and today's the day. Liokaiser is here. Our latest, greatest HasLab. Ignore the mess over there. I'm rearranging and cleaning and resetting shelves. I ought to do a tour of this place once I get everything reset here. But yeah, he finally came. So here's the mini meat cleaver of doom. We're gonna bust this sucker open here. We're doing old-fashioned unboxing. There's no script here. This is just going to be me and my initial reactions and all that good stuff. So I'll be honest. I really need to resharpen the meat cleaver here. But my enthusiasm for this figure has cooled quite a bit. It really has. So we have a box in a box. I guess that's to be expected. See if I can do this without doxing myself. And plain cardboard box in the box. But yeah, so, I was of course very excited for this because I am a Victory stan. And, the G1 Liokaiser is one of my holy grails. This was probably the only HasLab, though, that I felt really could have gone to retail. They did it like they did this guy here and made him, like a group of Autobots that people recognize first and then re-release him as Liokaiser. I think they could have done that, but I was okay with it. But then this whole thing went radio silent for a whole year. And then when they finally came in and did some things, we were not happy with what we saw. There were some design elements that we did not like. But there's the bottom of the box. You can see we had the cardboard corners, no plastic corners this time. But this box also didn't look like it was being manhandled. Well, I'm manhandling it now, obviously. And there we go. Here we have nice spot varnished glossy Victory logo right there. Old Japanese. Picture of Liokaiser. Of course, we've seen this already. Nice purple foil. Nice picture of Liokaiser. On the side of the box. There we go. There's the team. Back of the box. And the side of the box here. Nice purple metallic Transformers logo. And our artwork of the team. All right, let me stop here and then go over to the table and we'll start doing the thing. Now, right out the gate, what's really surprised me is how heavy this is. There is some mass in here. Just try to do a comparison here as best as I can. Here's his box with Thesaurus's box. Thesaurus is much taller, about the same width. And I just knocked stuff over here. You can see I got a lot up here. About the same width, but definitely a lot thinner. But I'd say it's about the same size as the Omega Prime box, all things considered. Yeah, it looked pretty similar in size. All right, and as I mentioned, this is not going to be a full review. This is just going to be an unboxing. I will review the figures on their own merits later on, probably do them in pairs so I can spend some time on them without doing like an insane, stupid long video. But yeah, as I mentioned, we were radio silent on this for quite some time. And, we weren't sure how certain things were going to work on this guy, how, the breast animals were going to work. Some people called it. Some people did call it. I will say that. But we weren't really sure. And usually, we get some more hands-on with these things. They look at feedback and sometimes make changes. They did make a change here because the original version of Liokaiser did not have the teal right here. The teal right here is show accurate, but it wasn't accurate to the original toy because Liokaiser was all gray going up here And he is that way in the show. It's just when he combines, this area magically becomes teal. So they did go ahead and paint this teal, and there were a lot of people who were asking about that online. But I feel like there are some design elements that are, I'm just going to call it what it is. It's trash. There is some design elements that are trash. And I feel like if there was more communication and more time to, address issues, and maybe they could have made a slightly different choice than the one that they made. And we'll get to that as we go through the individual figures when we get to that point. But anyway, let us bring out the mini meat cleaver of doom one more time, and we will cut the tape. And I don't have a whole lot of room to work here. So we have, we once again have Cybertronian lettering to tell us what box goes in what order. But screw that, I'm just going to grab the one that's on top, not the way I'm looking here, and pull this sucker out. So yeah, in my attempt to do all of that, I actually knocked a soda that I had sitting over right here off onto the floor, and the Omega Prime box got a little bit of it. And I had to stop to clean that up. All right. So our first tray, I'm pretty sure, is our display basage, and yeah. So here we go. So we got the big booklet, big comic booky booklet, and this little plastic tray that doesn't seem to serve any purpose. Okay. All right. And yeah, there is our display base, our spear tips to make the individual spears, and the parts to put them all together to make the electromagnetic nunchaku. So yeah, okay. We'll look at that later. Oh, hi. I figured out what that tray was for. So as I started moving that over, so that's what the tray was for. That tray is in here covering up the spears, which totally came flying out of there. I'm missing one. That one took a dive into the box. Okay, so that just kind of sort of sits there. It doesn't really, like, it's got little tabs in the plastic here, but that doesn't really clip in. So, all right, let's move that off to the side. And, I always throw these off to the side because, instructions, who needs them? But, oh, hey, look, it's got instructions for taking things out of the box and what comes in them. But the only way to get to these instructions is to already be doing them. I love that. But yeah, no, these are actually decent looking, nice, full color, decent sized images of everything. So that looks pretty cool. And how to do the display bases, all that good stuff, and things and stuff and things and stuff. The next tray number line. And there we have our first group of figures. Come on, stay open. Stay open. That wants to close back. So we'll go ahead and start pulling these out here. So we have all of the breast animals are in here, as well as Kill Bison's gun. So let's start things off here with Liokaiser, taking the time to make sure that there's no obvious QC issues. And yeah, Liokaiser is a robot on the bottom of a plane. Kind of knew that going into it. Not my favorite way of doing things with these kind of characters, but that's just usually the way it is. But he still looks pretty good. I'm not the biggest fan of the junk hanging off back here. That is, a sacrifice made for combined mode. I am a big fan of the raised sculpting for the Decepticon logos. And those do not have a nice metallic sheen to them. They look really good. Paint looks pretty clean. Tampos look good. Don't see any weirdness. So moving on to Skyhawk. Skyhawk, once again, just a robot sitting underneath a plane. Pretty bog standard for these guys. I wish they had done some... I mean, these can pivot up out of the way, but I do kind of wish that these, could articulate inwards, kind of like the Iron Factory ones do. Again, nice tempo for the Decepticon symbols, very clean paint, and Hellbat. Okay, and yes, I am calling him Hellbat. I refuse to call him El Bato. And again, looks pretty good. Nothing we weren't expecting. Not the biggest fan of the bright silver screw holes in plain sight, but that is what that is. And here we have Kill Bison's cannons. These are just pegged in bits of hollow, which I hate. I hate that. I hate that so much. And we have our breast animals. Pretty simple. Again, clean paint, decent tampos, scary looking color of plastic. I know they don't do that anymore, but I'm just saying. There we go. That almost looks like those wings can come off of there, but I guess that's not possible. They're pinned in. Pinned in. Okay. Do the pin down there. Kind of wish that these could articulate a little bit, the little wings. But yeah. So far, I'm not seeing any weirdness. Not seeing any breakage. Not seeing any bad paint or stress marks. Cobra, la 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 la. Sorry, I couldn't help it. Come on, Death Cobra totally looks like Serpentor, and you know it. Here is our Batty Bat. And our Hawk. Our Hawk for Skyhawk. So there are our breast animals. Oh, I missed one. Oh, God, dang it, DJ. You know better than that. You know better. Come on. Yeah, there we go. What's new, Putty Tat? There we go. And that's everything in that box. Now the next box, embedding our tank bros. Yeah, it's our one tank bro, and then a pair of pants and Jaguar. And this guy right here. Yeah, this is trash. This big gaping hole for a chest is complete and utter trash, and that is something that absolutely ruins this figure for me, and just greatly. And there was no call for it to be like this. Absolutely no call for it to be like this. Because he's not really structural in the combined form, they could have easily had this be like a slider with a push button back here to push that out, to have his chest be his actual chest. Now, obviously, there's going to be a third party
piece that you can tab in there to give him his proper chest, or maybe they might even replace the whole chest unit as a whole. But this is, in my opinion, completely unacceptable design work for a set of this cost, and it just is. It really is. But without that, just looking at the vehicle mode, he looks pretty good. Obviously, he's got tabs and stuff that kind of are ugly, but those are there for the combined form. Posts and whatnot. He's got his little feet guns here. I can plug in right there. And the obligatory pair of pants that we are saying are a missile pod launcher. Yeah, obviously this was not the best idea that a lot of us would have liked. It is what it is. We knew this was how they were doing it going into it, so it's not like this was a shock. I don't think this integrates very well, like with the case with Devastator's pants. But it is what it is. I do think the sculpting and the detail on these is pretty good. Paintwork is nice and clean. Even the little red dots there for the missiles. And Kill Bison. Let's give him his thing here. His thingy there. And of course, Kill Bison is one of the reasons why the vintage G1 Liokaiser will always be forever out of my reach as far as my holy grails are concerned, as he was cast entirely in gold plastic. And yeah, he pretty much is always broken. But yeah, I mean, that's a decent looking. Of course, we got hollow bits here, which I'm not a fan of that. I kind of wish that for the heel they just did that, so that way they would be equal on both sides. But whatever. I do like that they picked the treads out in paint, though. That's nice to see. Usually whenever you have tread units that are just, not real treads and just have the tabbed on wheels, they tend to be, all one color. And hey, look, once again, no actual chest in there. And again, that's trash. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it what it is. That is bad design work. I get what they were doing. I get what it is they were trying to do, what they were trying to replicate. They were trying to make sure that when their chest animals are plugged into them to be their breastplates, they look natural. See, they don't extend out really far like they would have if there was an actual, chest in there, which does make them look more show accurate. That is accurate to the show, but I think I would have rather had this sticking out a little too far like that and have an actual chest under here as opposed to, this. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I think that is garbage, and I think that's something we should absolutely complain about, because Hasbro needs to know that that's not acceptable. All right. Our last tray is our last Tank Bro and our first ever Death Cobra. So let's pull out our last Tank Bro. His nose cone is separate. Nice silver on this. Oh my God. Like this, that can compete with Bandai silver right there. That is gorgeous silver. You don't even know. Don't even know. There it goes. That pegs in there. And yeah, I mean, it looks like drill horn. Looks like drill horn. Again, they painted the treads. I love that. They they did it a little yellow symbol right there. Again, I'm not a fan of the hollow bits here. I can accept that more than I can accept that. Again, sculpting is really good. Colors are very good. Paint is clean, nicely applied. And lastly, we have our Death Cobra. And let's see, we got a little gun for him that goes right there in the nose cone. And then we get his propellers here, which are articulated. And I'm putting that on the wrong way. This side goes in there. Nice freely flowing propellers. I like that. And yeah, he's a little stumpy little helicopter dude. Those propellers spin very nicely too. But yeah, I mean, of course, Death Cobra existed essentially for one episode just to sort of prove how much of a chicken shit evil bastard this dude is. And I do think his robot mode is very evocative of Serpentor. But yeah. All right, and here is the whole team together. So first impressions, everything looks clean, everything looks well painted, everything looks well sculpted. The design elements that we kind of knew were going into it, I was expecting and was accepting of. The design elements I was not aware of and definitely not accepting of. Definitely hurt this figure greatly just right out the gate. But I would still say that my overall first impressions are still decent. What I was not prepared for was the size. I really thought these guys were going to be much smaller in hand, but they're actually really big, really chunky, hefty. So just for a couple of quick comparisons, here's a Beachcomber, and here's the Studio Series Thundercracker. You can see Thundercracker is still a longer jet, but weight-wise, this guy feels slightly heavier than this guy, like just a hair. Fan out his wings here. You can kind of see how those scale with each other. And I guess buggy for a buggy here. You can see how big these scale. These feel about the same weight. Of course, that's partially because he's very hollow. Damn you, Hasbro. Seriously. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think my first impressions are still favorable. But we'll see once we get done doing all the things that we do with this guy, doing all the combinations and whatnot and transformations and whatnot. We'll see if that still, we'll see if that still holds true. But anyway, for right now, that's just going to be it for me. Like I said, this was just an unboxing. I will come back and we will do a full review of these guys. We'll probably do them in pairs. So like I'll probably do Hellbat and Skyhawk together. We'll do Kill Bison and Drillhorn together. Probably do these two together. And then we'll do him and the combined mode. Sound like a plan? Let's do it. That's going to be it for me, guys. Y'all have a good one.